Greetings all. I am in Mexico now, teaching and getting ready for my next retreat. And we are looking at verse 36 of the Vijñāna-bhairava-tantra. Very interesting verse that I feel like I've gotten more insight on. Let me paste it into your chat window here. And you can sing along if you like. Kara-ruddha-dṛg-astreṇa bhrū-bhedād dvāra-rodhanāt dṛṣṭe bindau kramāl-līne tan-madhye paramā sthiti. If the practitioner closes the doors of the senses with the weapon by which perception is blocked with the hands and pierces the eyebrow-center, he or she will eventually perceive the Bindu. When it dissolves, one will experience the state of supreme stasis in one's center. Okay, so this is an interesting verse. I want to first signal the fact that with verse 36, we turn towards some more advanced practices in the text. So everything up till now is relatively easy to actualize, and now we get some more advanced practices where it's a bit more subtle and a bit more challenging and takes a bit more time to experience the fullness of the practice. And we'll see how this section fits into the larger text later on. But I've labeled this section in my translation, yogic practices, Bindu, nada, pranava, and so on. So with this particular practice, this is the first practice we encounter in the text where I haven't experienced some elements of the practice for myself, though I have experienced other elements of the practice. So I'll explain as we go along. So first of all, we get this mysterious phrase that we should close the doors of the senses with the weapon by which perception is blocked with the hands. Now, most commentators take this to refer to Shanmukhi mudra, which is simply where you take the index fingers and close the eyes firmly with the index fingers, plug or partially plug the nose with the middle fingers, cover the mouth with the ring fingers, and then plug the ears firmly with the thumbs. So you're in a state of sensory deprivation. Now, that's certainly what we see in Sanskrit commentaries as well as modern commentaries. And I think this mudra is important in one version of the practice. And in another version of the practice, it really doesn't matter. You can just put on an eye mask and put in earplugs and accomplish the same thing. So what's the difference between these two versions of the practice? Well, we see this unusual word used, astra, weapon. Now, it's very unusual to refer to the hands as a weapon, but it's not at all unusual to refer to specific bija mantras as astra mantras, weapon mantras. These are bija mantras that are considered to be especially powerful, such as sa, or whom, or pat. And given if we look at the modern oral transmissions of different versions of this practice, then that helps us zero in on the mantra whom as the probable mantra that's being alluded to here. Now, it is not unusual for texts like the VBT to make reference to mantras in this highly elusive manner where it's not explicitly mentioned at all. And indeed here it is so elusive that I haven't seen any modern translators who've kind of explicated this element of the practice. So whom is an astra mantra, and indeed in another version of this practice that in modern times is called Brahmari, or the bee breath, it's essentially the mantra whom is used, though it's not always named as such. In fact, sometimes it's just said, you should make a hum sound. Now, interesting coincidence, by the way, and I think it is just, well, it's not quite a coincidence because it's onomatopoetic, but the word hum in English is the exact same spelling as the mantra whom, though a slightly different pronunciation, because the vowel in the mantra is oo, whom. Okay, so what are the two versions of the practice? Let's go through them very, very clearly so you can get stuck in and experiment with this practice. So in the one version, again, you just put on an eye mask, you put in earplugs, and you sit in silent meditation with optional kumbhaka, holding the breath, just for as long as is comfortable, as many times in a row as is comfortable. Now, it may happen that if you concentrate attention at the bridge of the nose or just behind, inside the head, that eventually you have a visionary experience of a point of light that stands out in front of your third eye. And it actually is the point of light in your third eye, but as if standing out in front of you. Now, I have had this experience, but only spontaneously, sort of not on cue, as it were, by doing this exact practice. So when you see that point of light, that means, according to this verse, that the eyebrow center has been pierced. The third eye has opened, at least partially. And then you're supposed to become utterly absorbed in this point of light called a Bindu, really meditating on this point of light. And this is assuming it stays put, right? Because it does tend to flash in and out sometimes. But you want it to stay put. You want to sort of keep it there very gently. And eventually it will dissolve. And when it dissolves, that's when you experience this paramā sthiti, the supreme stasis or supreme stillness, which is an experience of one's deepest center or core, the core of one's being. The verse specifically specifies that this supreme stillness is experienced in one's center, madhya. So as one of the teachers in our Facebook group commented, if you're utterly absorbed in the Bindu, then when it dissolves, you dissolve, at least the you think of as being you, dissolves, and it's just pure awareness, but not amorphous awareness, rather grounded awareness. For it to have this experience of supreme stillness and stasis, you need to feel internally grounded. So I think that comment was absolutely correct in relating this experience to the word vishranti in Sanskrit, which it means reposing in your absolute center. Okay, so that is significant here, that there's a sense of reposing in the center in this perfect stillness and stasis experience. And that is the fruit of the practice, right? You can't make that happen. You're not supposed to try to make it happen. It's the natural fruit of the practice when you have done it enough. Okay, so that's one version, simple enough. Now the version that uses the mantra, having studied the Sanskrit commentaries and other sources, I'm feeling much more confident now that this is how it works, which is, in this version, you are doing the Shanmukhi mudra. Why? Because when you plug your ears and partially plug your nostrils, it intensifies the sound of the mantra, this astra mantra, whom. It intensifies it greatly. So I'll demonstrate now. Now, I don't know what that sounded like for you guys, but for me, it's like the whole, world consists of vibration because of blocking the ears, partially blocking the nostrils. The vibration of the mantra becomes extremely powerful in one's head. And I do think that this is very subtly suggested by the wording of the verse. And this indeed is why this mudra is important in this version of the practice. So you might try it for yourself. Obviously, if you try it right now, you're not going to see or hear anything else. But it's very simple, right? Thumbs in the ears, fingers on the eyes, and then just partially blocking the nostrils. And you notice the whom becomes internalized as rapidly as possible. I started with my lips open, but closed them very, very quickly and intensified the vibration. Where? Just at the point of the third eye, but inside the head. And I've noticed that even though I'm not a very visual person at all, doing it this way does tend to create more sort of light. And you're not supposed to press hard on the eyes, by the way. That's kind of cheating. You can get a lot of light by pressing hard on the eyes. But here we're actually looking for the specific single point of light to appear and remain steadily present in front of you. And that's the part of the practice I haven't experienced, again, only spontaneously, but not through doing this exact technique. So I look forward to trying this more. So I hope it's now super, super clear. There's no point in doing this practice together because there's, again, the sensory deprivation. Doing it together in person might be powerful, but through technology, it's one of the few practices that there's no point in doing it through the technology. Okay, so is everyone crystal clear now on this practice and its two variations? It's essentially one with mantra, where you need to actually do the mudra, and one without mantra, where you can just use eye mask and earplugs. And then, of course, the question is kumbhaka necessary? Well, the verse does not say kumbhaka at all. It just might be intended because of this idea of closing the doors in the head, the openings in the head. So we can guess that it might be intended, but we can't be sure. Okay, so Barbara asks, did you use the uchara ending in with the mantra? You know, this is a little bit hard to explain because it's not actually it's a pure nasal, as in French or Portuguese, like as in the French word bon. You know, it's a pure nasal sound, but ng approximates the pure nasal more closely than an M does, and that's why you hear Sikhs and Bengalis and others doing you know, or ong namo, or you know, so hung, like that. But it's actually not an ng. That is a oversimplification for the sake of pedagogy. It's really this pure nasal sound, which you still hear in some Indian languages, by the way. It's there in Hindi as well, but you might be more familiar with the sound in French or Portuguese. So it's what's the difference? With ng, there's more constriction at the back of the throat. And here, the back of the throat's a bit more open. It's not too constricted. It's essentially very, very, very similar to a hum. In fact, we could just call it a hum. So try that. When you do it this way, you barely close the nostrils, just enough to intensify the hum. Because if you close them too much, you're actually inhibiting that hum sound that, again, some call bhramari, because it sounds like a bee. A bhramari is a word for a bee, a honeybee. And of course, there's all kinds of interesting symbology to that. Bees are hugely important in tantric yoga metaphors. And we'll come to that in a later verse, because we will do the verse on the lotus of the heart in not too many weeks from now. Om.